latest confrontation unfolded as Venezuelan officials confirmed that U.S. authorities had seized oil tankers carrying Venezuelan crude while simultaneously increasing naval and air patrols across the Caribbean Sea. Caracas reacted with fury, framing the moves as a direct assault on its sovereignty and a dangerous escalation in an already volatile relationship. Foreign Minister Yvonne Gill warned that such actions go far beyond economic pressure, describing them as open acts of piracy and an illegal use of force that undermine long-standing principles of international maritime law. He argued that allowing powerful states to intercept and confiscate another nation's resources on the high seas sets a precedent that threatens global trade routes and security. Venezuela's government also stressed that the military buildup sends a confrontational signal not only to Caracas but to the wider international community. Officials claimed the presence of U.S. warships and surveillance assets has heightened tensions across the Caribbean, increasing the risk of miscalculation or accidental clashes. In public statements, Gill cautioned that silence or tolerance from other nations could normalize such behavior, gradually eroding diplomatic mechanisms meant to resolve disputes peacefully. He warned that if left unchecked, the dispute could spiral beyond bilateral tensions, pushing the world toward a broader and unpredictable global confrontation. The dispute intensified further after President Donald Trump publicly announced a blockade on what Washington described as sanctioned oil tankers, linked to Venezuela, framing the move as part of a broader campaign to pressure the Maduro government. U.S. officials argued that oil exports remain the backbone of Venezuela's economy and claimed that revenues from these shipments are being diverted to finance drug trafficking networks, terrorism-related activities, and human trafficking operations. According to Washington, tightening control over maritime flows is necessary to curb what it calls illicit state-sponsored activities and to protect regional security. Caracas forcefully rejected the allegations, calling them baseless and designed to justify aggressive enforcement measures outside U.S. jurisdiction. Venezuelan leaders insisted that the blockade amounts to collective punishment against the country's population and violates fundamental principles of international law, including freedom of navigation and non-intervention. Government spokespeople accused Washington of weaponizing accusations of crime and terrorism to mask an economic strategy aimed at strangling Venezuela's oil sector and forcing political change. The sharp exchange of claims and counterclaims further deepened mistrust, leaving little room for dialogue as both sides hardened their positions. Amid the mounting pressure, Venezuela's National Assembly moved quickly to demonstrate institutional unity and resistance to the U.S. measures by approving new legislation in its first reading. Lawmakers said the bill was designed to defend freedom of navigation and protect national trade routes, which they argue are being deliberately targeted by Washington's sanctions regime. Parliamentary leaders described the situation as a total U.S. blockade on Venezuelan oil tankers, warning that unchecked interference with shipping threatens not only state revenues but also essential imports such as food, fuel, and medicine. The proposed law seeks to create legal, financial, and operational safeguards for vessels carrying Venezuelan cargo, including mechanisms to insure ships, protect crews, and pursue international legal action against seizures. Officials framed the move as both a defensive and symbolic step, signaling that Caracas would not passively accept what it views as economic warfare. Supporters of the bill said it reinforces national sovereignty and provides the government with tools to maintain trade under pressure, while critics warned that escalating legal and political responses could further strain relations and complicate already fragile economic conditions. As the standoff deepened, international observers warned that the confrontation could extend far beyond bilateral tensions, with potential consequences for global energy supplies and maritime security. Venezuela's leadership began intensifying diplomatic outreach to allies and international organizations, urging them to condemn what Caracas describes as unilateral coercive measures and violations of international law. Officials argued that if powerful states are allowed to enforce blockades and seize cargoes without multilateral authorization, it could undermine the rules-based order governing global trade and navigation. At the same time, uncertainty grew over how far the escalation might go, as increased military deployments in the Caribbean raised concerns about miscalculation or unintended incidents at sea. Energy analysts cautioned that continued disruptions to Venezuelan oil exports could contribute to volatility in already sensitive global markets. With Washington and Caracas holding firmly to opposing narratives, the crisis entered a precarious phase in which diplomacy, legal challenges, and power politics intersect, leaving the international community watching closely to see whether the dispute moves toward de-escalation or hardens into a longer-term geopolitical flashpoint.